Hey guys, this is Anastasia, and this video is going to be my first research video. Basically, throughout the Quest for the Goddess series, I'm going to be researching various goddesses and taking massive amounts of notes and writing down all the information that I kind of get, and then making a video on it to put out there basic knowledge. It's not meant to get too in-depth, but at the same time, I don't want it just to be, okay, here are the correspondences for such and such a goddess. So there will be a little bit of meat on there. I really want it to be a good resource, not only for me to fall back on, but also anyone to use. I think a lot of times the information on our various goddesses kind of disappears throughout history, or gets twisted or perverted or becomes something it isn't. So anytime I think people can make videos on goddesses or gods or traditions, I understand there's amounts of secrecy that we want to keep in our personal practices, but basic knowledge that's out there, I think is good to share on Facebook, on YouTube, as well as other social media, just because it gets it out there a bit more. I know for myself, I love studying, I love reading, but a lot of times I don't have time or opportunity to sit and read various websites or various books. So having it all on YouTube is really helpful, because I can put my earphones in, do what I need to be doing, but I'm learning simultaneously. So I thought it would be a good thing. I do have notes out in front of me. That's kind of why the camera angle's a little different. So you're going to notice me looking down a lot. I know I struggle keeping eye contact with the camera anyway, so I don't think it's going to be that huge of a difference. But if it does irritate people, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be avoidant of the camera. It's more I want to make sure I include everything I want to include. So the first goddess that we're going into, and this video might need to be split up into two videos. We'll see, just because it had that bit of an introduction as far as why I'm doing videos this way and what all it's going to be. And also, there's a lot of information on her. The first goddess is the German goddess Holda, and she has a lot of things that are connected to her. She's probably best known as a winter goddess, but she is also a goddess of death, or the underworld. Some sites were attributing her protector of children and animals. I was listening to a lecture, and they attributed her to a goddess of sexual love. And also she is seen as a protectress of the elder tree, which is also known as the witch's tree, and it is one of her sacred trees. And she is also, later in time, she was seen as a goddess of witches. And some people, in response to the goddess of witches, and I'll get more in detail on that later on in the video, see that title almost as a slap in the face, because it came after Christianity, and it kind of was one of those things where it wasn't necessarily meant to be a compliment. It was more of a demonization of her. So, but I really like it. I don't think it needs to be that negative of a thing. I see it more as a positive for, just a very basic understanding. She is a dual aspect goddess to most. Most sources I read see her as maiden and crone. But I did run over a decent amount of sites and a couple of videos that saw her as a triple goddess, maiden, mother, and crone. Most of the tales about her deal with her in her maiden aspect and her crone aspect. I really didn't find any tales dealing with her mother aspect, but when we go into talk about her as a death goddess or a goddess of the underworld, that's what kind of hits on her protector of children title. And in that way, I guess I can kind of feel the motherly vibe. I know with Hell, it's very much the same, and there's a lot of corresponding elements between Hell and Holda, as well as there's a couple that kind of are mirrored in Holda and Frigg or Frigga. But with Hell, when I work with her or have worked with her in the past, I felt nowhere you'll ever see her referred to as a mom, really. She's a dual aspect maiden and crone, and to be honest, most people just look at her crone phase, and I understand that. But Hell, if a child dies before it is before a certain time, Hell is who watches over that spirit or that soul. It goes directly to her. She is a protector of mothers in childbirth. And those are things that I've read and also found to be true with her. And then she has, because of that aspect, I can see the mother aspect, and that actually is almost identical to what Holda's deal is. Again, lack of a better phrase. So in that way, I can see the mother side, even though the tales don't really talk about her being in a mother phase or dealing with motherhood all that much. I can see that. So since we kind of delved into it, I'm going to jump into the underworld / death aspect of Holda first. Again, she's most widely revered as she seems to be more widely revered as the goddess of winter. Well, winter is death. Fall into winter is death. Winter is when we have the destruction of old. Fall is kind of the dying aspect, and then it is here when it is winter. It's cold, it's desolate, there's nothing that grows. If you're in an area that has a true winter. So in that way, I kind of saw the death aspect, but otherwise, the only real thing that I found that really connected her to death was that when children died, if they died before they were named or after Christianity came to the land, because she was still a goddess that was, she is still a goddess that is honored and recognized, obviously, but even in German lands, they did still see her in certain ways, even after Christianity. But so before Christianity, it was before a child was named. I read traditionally it was 9 days before a child was named. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but if a child were to die before it was named, it could not go to the ancestral spirits for them to watch over and take care of the soul from that point forward. So it would go to Holda. After Christianity came, it dealt with the christening. Once the child was christened or baptized, I apologize, I'm saying christened. Sometimes it's one and the same, sometimes it's different. I do mean baptized. If the child was baptized and then died, it would go to heaven. But if it was, again, dealing with Christianity, but if the child was not baptized and it would die, they would still believe it would go to Holda. The child's spirit would go to Holda. And in that way, she is also a protector of children and such. But really, that's the only death aspect that I really got, that and her whole tie to winter in and of itself. Otherwise, she is a goddess of the underworld, but what's kind of weird is not weird, what is different is the underworld that seems to be talked about when they're dealing with Holda is not the land of the dead like you're talking about with Hell, or Hades, or things, or gods of that nature. They're not dealing with a land of dead. They're dealing with more a land of magic, kind of an other realm, not an underworld, or otherworld, not underworld. It dealt more, I'm sorry, I'm adjusting my sitting. There we go. We'll see how long that one lasts. Um, but it deals more with a realm of magic, a realm of fae. She does have she is seen as a queen of fae or a leader of fae. She actually has a grouping of fae. I believe it's the Holden, which are named after her. And the Holden, there's a couple of different descriptions that I found of them. One had them as normal domestic women, going about their business in day-to-day life. But then at night, their spirits would leave their bodies and go travel out into the wild, take to the skies and have feasts and party and dance and all of this kind of stuff. And it really was like, okay, so they're astral traveling. That's what they're referring to. I thought that was kind of cool, just a personal thing I gleaned. But the other description that I found of the Holden, which I actually really resonated with, are there these nature elven women almost. They have the pointed ears and beautiful, beautiful women, but they have these tails. And there's different descriptions of the tails. I found a couple of different ones. But the point is they're there. They have tails. And they often are shown wearing gray sacks or rags or clothes, just kind of ramshackle to them. And the purpose of that is they're hiding their backs. On their backs, they have this hole in their backs, and it's hollowed out. And it's not like hollowed out like blood and gore, but more like a tree. Some will be, I've seen a couple pictures where they have like branches sprouting out from this hole, but otherwise when you like approach a trunk of a tree and it's got a hole in it, that's how their back would look, like a hollowed out piece of trunk. And what really spoke to me about this is the Holden will wear these rags to hide that because they want to be thought beautiful. They don't want to be seen as ugly. And I don't know why that really got to me, but it did. Just the idea that there are these nature spirits that are curious and quizzical, and they want to have a connection almost to the humans, it seems like, that come to their wood and don't want to scare them off and want to be thought of as beautiful. And it also shows a connection to Holda. When Holda is in her maiden aspect, she is seen as a woman of stunning beauty, usually wearing all white. Sorry, needed to read that from the notes. However, there have been a couple of occasions where people have written, she's beautiful from the front. From the front, she's this amazing, beautiful maiden. But from the back, she looks like a tree. And so I thought that was kind of cool that both her and her fae children of sorts have this connection that the front, you look like a beautiful human, but from the back, you're obviously magical. And that also kind of, again, was a similarity between her and Hel, because Hel, you have it straight down the middle, sometimes top to the waist, and then the bottom is different, but usually straight down the middle you have half skeleton, half maiden, or half corpse, half maiden. And here you have half maiden, half nature. And I thought that was kind of cool. But and another thing that kind of speaks to the other world as opposed to underworld aspect is most occasions where you're going into the underworld or land of the dead, you're going through a cave. That's a lot of imagery. But with Holda, she lives she usually, most say she lives in a well. Like, you go to a well, if you fall in, you will fall down to Holda's land, to Holda's home. So you have to go through water, and water, of course, is a very magical element, and is really, it harkened to me a Lady of the Lake type of feeling. To connect to the fae, to connect to magic, you have to go through water. And so it would make sense to me that her underworld was actually a realm of magic as opposed to dead, because you have to go through the magical element to get there. Not to say other elements aren't magical, but in a lot of magic imagery, water seems to be that connector. I'm going to stop it here because I see I'm approaching 15 minutes, and I will start with part 2 in the next video. Thanks.